You began to brood over humanity and made meals of our hope, as if crushing our spirits would make your mirrors cast better reflections than the ones they gave. As if the only way you could save yourselves was to make the world ugly so no one would notice you hiding in it.
So the last we left off, I know Senshi, aka Postscript, Robin0928, and WedCord without any clear leader set up to putting the rift back together. Robin offered to be a mod and WedCord offered to lead. I had also offered to lead, and I didn't even ask, because I knew the answer would have been no. So instead, while everyone else was squabbling, I set about adding people to the room. That would be the second rift. I skipped key moments when the old rift was coming down. Sheldon from the PFC had tossed Vita into the room and was busy spamming, "This bitch is coming down," which at that time would have been we. Yes, I was thoroughly a PFC member. We're all laughing our asses off at this. You might have asked why I deserted so fast, because the rift would have died then and there. A key moment when we were remaking the rift was when I was reading off names. Just as a point of reference, when we were reading off names to re-add back to the room, I remember reading off Corpulent Brony's name. Robin, WedCord, and I all said add him. It's funny because back then the worst thing about Corpulent was he hung out with me, Sheldon, and Licky. The name literally where WedCord, Robin, and literally started screaming at me when I asked to add said person was Biter, where I got a resounding fuck no when it came time to add him to the room. There was no personal agenda to get Biter into the rift. I bring this up because Biter in the last video's comments tried to retell the story as a select few of people had a problem with him. Biter dear, these 4 people have precious little in common, which I was one of, and we all knew you didn't belong in that room. You can try and whitewash the history all you like. The problem is, outside of Mage, I can't think of anyone who'd agree with you, with all due and complete respect. Quick point of order, this video is going to piss off a lot of people. Whoever said the truth will set you free was lying out their ass. I'm going to give you guys the truth, the ugly kind. By the end of this, I'm betting many of the old Rift and the PFC alike, aka the Pony Fuckcast, are going to scowl at me. But you're welcome to call me a liar. Just remember that there's a lot of people who can recall these stories as well. I want to clear one more thing up. I don't hate Biter, at least not now. I can't even recall the last time he's been a problem. I just want there to finally be a place where I can point to this is what happened. Moving along, a brief while later I added the LOONeyTurtle. He was a former collab partner of mine to the room. He came into the call and asked what we were doing, and after an explanation, he asserted I can run the room. Now listening back even at this time, it sounds weird that someone would just walk up and say, "Okay boys, I've got this one." And the main reason this worked was, between myself, Senshi, Robin, and Red, no one really recalled Looney ever causing any trouble, and Looney was by a means by which to compromise. There was the next step that I was smart enough to get involved in, and by now, many people were joining in the spectacle. The Analysis Riffs admins, or the mods. At all costs, the guy I wanted to get in, and I mean at any fucking cost, was Aeon of Dreams, aka Peter. Peter had spent more time with the PFC than the Rift in its waning days, mostly due to the people who were starting to defect from the Rift to the PFC because of Keyframe's 12-hour calls, talking about her personal problems. Now, I know what you're saying, that sounds kinda cold, and this went on for days, with no end in sight. And if you tried to criticize this, there were a bunch of beta males who would jump on you. This led to the infamous Knights in Beta Armor picture. Certain people were above the rules, no if and or doubt about it, which is why, when Vita did show up, so many people did at least initially follow him because he was the middle finger to the status quo. I was smart enough not to suggest Peter aka Aeon of Dreams first. I think my first suggestions were Rosie Sievers and Puzzle Brony. I want to repeat that again, I suggested Puzzle Brony. Puzzle got admin and thankfully DCP joined the call and begged that we mod Peter, to which I said, "Oh my god, I forgot all about Peter. That's a great idea, can we?" Oh, and it happened. Making up the rest of the roster for about a week or two was Toon Critic, Cam Goes Pony, Looney, Aeon of Dreams, and Puzzle. And when I ran to the PFC, I felt like we had won. With the only area of concern had been Cam Goes. He had been around, but we didn't know him, and he was an unknown quantity we were unfamiliar with. There was one more tiny matter that Toon had some IRL issues, private, that will sadly, even for this story, will remain that way. Not just out of respect, but they're not necessary. The main point was he wasn't always around. Oh dear friends, our story might have ended here. The analysis community may have well gone on to go happily ever after. There are some minor points, like for weeks, possibly months, Puzzle and I begged Sweetie Bloom to come back, which she eventually did. And a point about Biter. Looney immediately asked, Whereas Biter, when I explained what had happened, he re-added him because Looney always had his head up Biter's ass, due to his affiliation to Crepuscular Bronies Discuss, aka CBD. Was that a big deal? Well, yes and no. We'll get to that in time. Day 1. I remember looking up tranquilly from the PFC to find Leaky had gotten himself into trouble with Camgo's pony. Truth is, I don't even remember why, but it seemed petty and stupid. We had just gotten things worked out, and the metaphorical paint hadn't dried. I was just about to throw his ass under the bus when he was removed for about 30 minutes, pulled into the mod chat, which had never been done before, and they'd hashed things out. The Rift was happy, Leaky was happy. I remember saying afterwards, holy shit, these guys have it so much better put together than a male alicorn. And for 2 weeks, that was the rallying cry that filled the mods with joy. Wow, this is so much better, like petty bullcrap was actually wrapped up in minutes and not hours. It's not as if the new Rift was amazing. It's not as if the new Rift had amazingly new people. The current mods were just allowed to moderate. There was one more unimportant point of contention, but I remember over the week tapping Biter on the shoulder and asking, hey, I'm semi-responsible for about 99% of the assholes in the Rift, and you're that last 1%. Could you perhaps hang back a week or two? And he gave me an earful, and I had no business asking him to do this in the first place. Now, did Biter ever cause a massive meltdown in the second Rift? No. He did get in trouble eventually. I kind of bring this up because I want to point out, as well-intentioned as I might have been, I pretty much had my head up my own ass with what I could have and couldn't do. Point of order? Special thanks goes out to Aeon Drinks for romanticizing yours truly as a magnificent bastard.
Alright, so let's rewind time back to about 2014, specifically August of 2014, because that is when the original Rift, first Rift, Malicorn's Rift, whatever you used to call it, fell apart. And after that, there were a lot of splinter groups that popped up, and one of those groups was Looney's Rift, or the so-called Second Rift. And initially, people like me, Puzzle Brony, Toon Critic, Camgoes, we were chosen to be part of the mod team, and initially we all agreed to it. And for the first 2 or 3 months or so, everything was looking great. We had transparency, we had defined rules that we actually followed, and we were allowed to change them. And our admin was actually online and wouldn't undo the shit we just did, and, you know, all this great stuff. But then after that, things started to fall apart, specifically when the other 3 that weren't me or Looney began to resign from their positions, and we essentially had to replace it with the best of a bad situation.
When I think of all the times I was just straight up a bastard, Aeon had been my personal PR agent, and I am eternally grateful. I talked about Leaky getting into trouble for no reason, and we all kinda did the same stupid bullshit on the PFC side, including my ex Snickers. But naturally, being a girl, she got 100% walk every time. Did we use that to our advantage? Well, I sure as fuck did. Let me let you on a little secret. I tell my current girlfriend, Kichi, everything. I can't begin to assume Kichi tells me everything, but if you're trusting a girlfriend of someone else that you hate, you're a moron. The first boner of the second Rift thankfully never turned out to be as huge as one might have assumed. Or rather, the first 2 boners. The first boner was when Looney took over, he kept in contact with Vita, who week after week, month after month, Looney continued to keep teasing Vita that he would get back in. Now, part of that was revenge to get even with Vita, who got thrown out of the Rift. Originally, the Rift had a massive Google document of shared OC poses, and everyone was in there. Well, Vita kinda erased it all. Then he had a friend go in there and fill the folder with blood, gore, and the like. Looney, to get even, forever dangled getting back into the Rift to Vita. For those next coming months, Vita would continue to harass the Rift from outside the Rift far more than he ever did when he was within it, simply because Looney didn't have the wherewithal to tell him to fuck off. The second boner was Looney re-admined Pass Analysis, arguably the most mentally unstable mod of the first Rift. If Biter is in the comments, he can clear this up if he wants to. Despite me and Vita and a lot of other people having a stroke at this, it was all for naught. I don't recall Past nuking the house in the second Rift. He didn't flip any tables. He caused a dumb argument here and there, but nothing of legendary status like the first Rift. The first real problem, and keep in mind this is from my waning memory, was WedCord. This was a holdover from the first Rift. Red would come into the call, run you over, change the topic to Ed, Edd, and Eddy, or literally start a game of Cards Against Humanity in the Rift. Reno Rhino Mills months later would join the Rift and would explain at first this was not really a big deal. About a week later, he said that to his friends in Bob that even when people mentioned Cards Against Humanity, he felt nauseous. To be perfectly clear, this is something that became all-consuming. Many members of the Rift, not just the PFC, would go to Looney and ask something to be done. We'd get a Rift mod hearing. Until this day, I don't think any of the mods ever talked to WedCord about being an inconsiderate ass. My ex Snickers came up to me one day and said that she even screamed him down. till he shut the fuck up, and she was proud of herself, and asked if I was proud of her, and I fucking was. And to be perfectly clear, Knickers was not a saint. She was rather actually deeply introverted, and it does however take a lot to have her scream someone down. One day, sitting around the old Vita Army chat, we'd be talking about it with Dylan, a former member of Equestria Confidential, and he said, "Hey, we can make a video making fun of the fact that WedCord's a total cunt," and he even offered to edit it. Now the Burning Donut can do a dead ringer for WedCord's voice. Some of you guys will be like, "Oh, you're picking on him because of his voice." No, we're picking on him because he's a dick. It just so happens that hitting his voice is an easy target. Anuva Brony has a different speech pattern, and we don't like him, but you've never seen us make a video picking on him. The PFC and Anime Wolfgamer don't get along, yet pretty much the same thing. You don't understand, damn near every day, he would impose himself in call over everyone else, and no one would do anything. So we made this video calling him WedCord, and there'll be a link in the description. I will never apologize for this video. Ever. I'm not sorry about it. I never will be. I wrote the script, Donut did Red's voice, and Sheldon was himself in the video. And when it went up, Knickers accidentally dropped it off into the rift, which was against the rules. But because they're beta males and she's a girl, she got off scot-free. WedCord saw it and stormed out of the rift, and myself and Sheldon were hooting and hollering, doing the dance of joy in the PFC when this happened. Oh god, we were so proud of ourselves. And then Keyframe left, after leaving a fateful speech. We'll get to that. Naturally, the moderating staff hopped too. Now I want to state for the record, today I and Keyframe are on good terms. Maybe she's gonna hate my guts after this video, I'd certainly understand, but I want people to understand why things happened. Donut and Sheldon were banned for 1 and 3 months respectively. Sheldon stepped forward and said, "Punish me, Donut's homeless, I'll take the blame." And that's how it went down. The PFC was less than thrilled with Key before this, but she did stop us from winning back then. There was a chance that Red would have fucked off and the problem would have been solved, and that would have been that. So it became I cry, insta-win in the analysis rift. By this time I wanted to start my own base. I started a Skype group called the PFC Lite, which grew into the limbo Skype chat that is today. The point was, I thought I needed room to show, hey, we're not all total dicks. We needed a PR room where people could see us slightly filtered. Now to be totally clear, I am not a saint. Sheldon 1 month into his ban had gotten a reprieve, and both of us were hanging out in the PFC Lite when I said, "Hey, you should pretend to be WedCord on MLP forums. It'll be funny." He loved the idea, and we both did. One of my mods in the PFC Lite was Nick Z, aka Scribble Squabble, and sadly enough, because we're idiots, we left a link laying around in the room. I fucked up, and the truth is, one of the mods in the PFC Lite was Nick Z, aka Scribble Squabble, and we left a link laying around in the room, which then Nick then turned around into the Rift, cause he was good friends with WedCord. Now, I'm not mad at Nick, I hired him to stop trouble in the room. I fucked up, and truth is, and all that happened to Sheldon was he had to finish out his original 3-month term. The best way to describe the mods in the second rift was that they treated the problem but never cured it. Here's something to treat the inflammation but not fix it. By now, we were frustrated beyond belief and pissed. I didn't even get Sheldon involved in the next one, the return of Vita. A while later, I think Vita can correct me in the comments, if he desires, I suggested that Vita could sneak back into the rift if he used an existing screen name, someone who already established. I made this suggestion so long ago, by the time he did, I forgot that he had suckered me. I was actually fucking embarrassed. Blue Star, Defender of Equestria, had gotten into the analysis rift.
The end is not yet written, so I hope all of you out there will stay behind and be there for Theory Brony and offer what support and you can for him, and that the end is not yet written. Maybe we may have lost perhaps these first 2 battles, but the war can still be won.
And at that time, for political reasons, I welcomed everyone in. Hi, welcome to the Rift. If you need anything, I know a couple of people that could help, and this made me a lot of friends. I think this was one of the reasons why I got away with more than my friends did. I'd chummy up to the new people. My popularity was always pretty solid despite being in the PFC. It kinda always was a handicap, but for the longest time I felt like I could juggle it to a point. But that's another story. After I gave my spiel to Blue Star, I went back to the PFC call and everyone in there was laughing their balls off at me. Yep, it was Vita, and he shared everything I said, and there was a huge giggle at how I was acting. I was pissed, but it was damn funny, so I let it go. You know what happened when Vita snuck back in the rift? Nothing. Zero. He literally did nothing wrong outside of being in there. Suddenly it felt crystal clear all our frustrations with the rift were, wow, these people really are just assholes. Looking back, that's not entirely true. What happened next made myself, Sheldon, Leaky, and Corpulent Brony's blood boil. Like we were furious. Puzzle Brony, now the guy who I'd actively supported and had been even hanging out with the PFC, and the PFC, like by that time I believe was being called Limbo, started a secret rift. It was a PFC free rift. It was weird for weeks. The activity in the rift had kinda gone to a crawl. Funny thing is, Blue Star, or rather Vita, had just been chucked into this secret rift. Puzzle had been adding people without asking them. And they literally had a ban list. A ban list with all of our names. I think Corpulent's name was higher than Vita's. Corpulent Brony would keep repeating this in my ear. See, Anthony, you trusted these people. You tried to work with these people, and look how it got you. It was a bigger slap in the face than that analysis button that had shark on it. It wasn't just enough that they wouldn't fix the main room. They went the extra mile to leave it fucked up and then escape. We peeked in there, obviously through Vita, and we saw that basically the death of the rift. One giant hug box filled up to the brim with roleplay and emotes. Like there were non-analysis rooms, for crying out loud. This room, and get this, would go on to be called the fucking Sanctuary. Puzzle, who I always had been straight with, especially about the WedCord thing, and when I confronted him about this, stormed out of Limbo and ran back to his room, and acted like he didn't know us. He is on my shortlist for the truly two-faced assholes in the community. Now, I could whitewash what happened next. We did screw with Vita in the room, asking Blue Star, hey, what's your cutie mark stand for? And that's the funny thing, is Toon thought we were trolling Blue Star after I had told him to keep an eye on him. For 2 or 3 days, Vita would rub it in our noses that he was in Puzzle's Just Us League, like non-stop. So naturally, one day, in the Rift call, I was starting to tell Toon the truth, and the burning donut had cut me off, and then Sheldon blurted it out. Not because we're nice guys, though that was the story we told at the time, but because Vita was being so obnoxious we couldn't handle it anymore. I loved Toon's response, are you sure it's Vita? And I said you could ban me for life if it's really Blue Star. So then he threw Vita's sorry ass out. It was funny because he didn't say why before throwing him out, and the rest of the room was deeply confused. Toon thanked me for my trouble, and Vita was removed from Puzzle's room. That they said that they would consider me, or rather us. Toon thanked me for my trouble, and Vita was removed from Puzzle's room, despite the fact that Puzzle still considered me, or rather us, to be complete scum of the earth. Arrogant prick. The problem with Toon that ended up pissing off most of the PFC, and something I had got over, is that he would show up and ask for money then piss off. I remember I and Vita gave him $20 after he poured on the power of friendship, and then you'd never see him again. Once again, I did learn to get over this, but it did leave you feeling like a chump for a bit. I want to remind people at first that the PFC did love Toon. Hell, so did Vita. Later on, Sheldon and Vita would scream racial obscenities at Toon. I'm not going to repeat that here. And the weird part about it is that when Vita did it, Sheldon and I were like, no, that's too far, and tried to shame down Vita for doing it. But like a week or so later, Sheldon did the exact same thing. My fans and the PFC have both asked me, why don't you want to be with the PFC anymore? Like, where the fuck do I start? It's not to say I don't understand why you're angry or frustrated, like I get it. The PFC used to be really big on listening to DigiBro and Jesse Wood, who used to talk about how bronies would have a lack of empathy for their fellow man. But you guys wind up doing the exact same thing so many goddamn times. I know because I've done it, which leads me to my next story in the second rift. Holy crap, does this story ever end? Like, while recording this, I thought I was going to lose my voice. I left out the backdoor deal I made with Toon, one of many, many backdoor deals I made to save my sorry ass from getting kicked out. I need a break from this so I can go work on How Not to Brony 10 and possibly a podcast. Also, for the record, I recorded British Ninja's Analysis Daily King of Limbo podcast and it got corrupted. If you know how to fix corrupted MP4s from OBS, I've seen some videos on how to do this, please contact me in the comments. I've seen some ways to do this, but I'm not tech savvy. I may also chime in on KP-gate as everyone else is. There's a link to Mindless Gonzo's channel where he's already sort of lightly touched upon this, and it's the first and only video that doesn't handle it passive-aggressively. It was at least nice to see that there was one person in the Brony fandom who was willing to make an honest video about this whole damn thing. Dear Minty, why yes, I did try and send you to work for KP back in the day. Because I hate you. It's because we all know that she treats her staff like shit, and I only wish you the worst. I would like to see you animate for her, and to see her bury your name underneath her name, her Twitter, her Tumblr, her cat's name, what she ate for breakfast that day, what she painted her toenails that day, and have your name written in ultra-tiny fine print. You know what? I take it back. I don't want you to work for KP, because then she'd have to put up with you. As for anyone who made it all the way through this, type 13 at the start of your post in the comments section. I'm just curious to see who did. This was easily going to be 30 minutes plus, and we got a long way to go, and I need a break. Till next time, don't ask why a field burns or a plague spreads. All for no good reason.